Welcome to the old Sardine Village Museum. I'm Barney, Rier, and my wife Becky and I own and operate this establishment. Today we're at the William Underwood Memorial Shop. Now this is the third time this morning that we started off on this film. The first time we had the wrong film in there. And the next time, someone let a big holler out of them, "Hello in there!" So I went over to take care of it, and the fellow had climbed right over our barricade, and right by the sign that said, "Do not disturb filming." And so I get rid of him, and as luck would have it, I didn't lose my temper.
Oh, Barney, I think you'd call it losing your temper. You ran right over there and you said, "Can't you read?" Then you let the guy tell you his name, and he said he was from North somewhere, and he was trying to tell you that he wanted to do something up in the parking lot. And you said, "I don't care if you're Santa Claus and you came down from the North Pole. You shove off now."
That was quite a control of my temper. How about here a couple, 3 weeks ago when the woman come up and thumped on the door and says, "Barney, Barney." And I just walked right over there, calm as could be, and I said, "You just spoiled our film." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. But if you would have left the door unlocked, I could have come in and yelled at you." And I didn't let a peep out of me.
No, you just stood there shaking your head.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to the William Underwood shop. Everything in this shop came right from the William Underwood factories, and up until recently. Now we've added a few choice pieces. Now I'm going to show those pieces to you and point them out as we go through. But right now, Becky's going to give us a little early history.
Now this is a picture of William Underwood. He was born in 1787, and he died in 1864. William Underwood, an Englishman, was the first to preserve food by canning in this country. The method he used was basically the same as what we use today, sterilizing the food in airtight containers by heat. His grandson, Lyman, wrote a history of the William Underwood Company using the old records, and we're going to try to follow those records as closely as possible, supplementing when necessary from the canning plan. Now, in the beginning of canning, they used glass jars such as this. They hand cut the cork stoppers, and you notice that the stoppers are wired right to the jar. Now let's look at some of these other jars. Now in 1820, he started canning pickles, jams and jellies, and sauces and ketchups. In 1828, he canned the first milk. And the records tell us that 6 months later, when they opened up these jars of milk, they were just as sweet as ever. In 1834, they started canning tomatoes. And our records tell us that in the beginning, they strained out the seeds and the skins. Now these jars were sent over from England, and they had a lot of breakage on the voyage over. So it was quite costly. And now I'm going to move over to the lobsters. The first lobsters were canned in 1836, and our records tell us that they cooked them right on the beach in an iron pot over a tripod. And that's what this scene depicts. When we were trying to make up this scene, my husband asked an old gentleman friend of his from Roke's Bluff, Maine, if he had any artifacts or knew of anybody that did from the old Underwood lobster factory that used to be down there years ago. And he said he had this cleaver that an old woman had given to him many years before, and that they had used this to break the shells on the lobsters. Now in 1825, the tin can was patented. Now it's 1839. It's 14 years later. The patent has run out, and I'm going to turn you over now to Barney, and he's going to tell you about that first tin can.
This is the very first piece of equipment made specially for can making. We call it a stake. And I had it for better than 20 years before I even knew what it was. One day, picked up my mail, a nice little parcel there for me. And I went up to eat, and I didn't get very far into dinner before I realized what this little tool was. I went right over to the shop and made my first pieces. The bottom, and the top, and the patch, all right on that stake. Now I want to fill the motions of making one of these ends up. So I got a little hole started here, a little center place. See, and all you do is turn that. So it's all got the circle on it. I'll try working right off of here. I've cut this part way around. And these are the curved bill shears. They're nice and sharp. Sharp as a razor. So if I can cut that part way around, I could have cut it the whole way, right? So now I don't take too much time on here. Just lay that right on there, centralize it, and hammer that deck down around, just as you see I've done right there. Now I think I'll have you get right in practically on top of this so that I can demonstrate making up these ends. First I'm going to show you some of the features of this stake. Now this part right here is for forming the cap, the patch. So you'd hammer it up against that. Right around the edge on the outside, you'd hammer the top and the bottom. I'll hit that a few times. You notice that I keep turning the end and hammering in the same place. That's the easy way to do it. But you see how this is flattened off right here? That place right there is where old William Underwood hammered away on there, held it right in that one place. This come out of Underwood's Jonesport factory. And I can also see writing right around here, but I can't make it out. I can't make it out. And I see a Nan sign over in here and some, right there, Nan sign, and W's and L's and one thing and another, but I can't read it. It's been pitted and it's been thumped on. So after you make the end, make the top. And so you make the outside edge the same way, and you'd make this part down over. I should be working over here if I can. So you keep turning that. That's what's taking that writing right off there too. And then on the inside, it's the same thing again. So you're always hammering in one place. That's the fill hole right there. Now we got the patch for the fill hole. Lay that on just like that. That's going to fit right down against that top in good shape when we get down here. Every once in a while you turn that over, and hammer this concave into it. That gives it strength. Now, I want to, before I finish the can, I got to make up the body and everything. I want to get down and look at the stem real close. Now, we're looking at this stem of the steak, and you can see that the stem, if you notice carefully, it's bigger at the top than it is coming down here. And you see that it's flat out here on the bottom? That's where it's been tapped on from the top against the throat of the vise on the bottom. And over on this side, see where the pointer is now? Right over in here you can see, right underneath you see a little white line. That's really where that's cracked a little bit, split open, where it's been broomed up from tapping here on the top. Now come back up the stem, right up to the throat of it here. And you see those hatch marks there, and you probably can see where there's hatch marks on the vise. That's from the vise. That's from the vise cutting into it. And those are on there, and that was, I could never figure that out, and I used to examine that time after time. First I thought they were holding that and hammering on the other end, but I couldn't explain the hatch marks away from the vise. Now we'll assemble the can. So now I got my piece of driftwood ready here to curl the bodies. And just sort of wrap that right around there. And that comes out just about the right size. You can see that right there now. Now I'm going to go right over to the one that I've already got on the mandrel, getting ready for the soldering. Now this triangular outfit here, I made this from an old soldering iron. You can look that over. So you spread the part, took the copper off it, and riveted it on there. In a later account I found, it's not in the Underwood account, in a later account I found that they had one of these to hold that while they're doing the soldering. And the solder in those days didn't come in the wire. That'll be later on. So I recall they put a little water on the tin and then rosin for flux. Then you take your hot copper and solder that the whole length. I would draw that right down in there. So when it was all finished, the side seam, there's a lot of solder on that. It would look like that right there. I'll keep getting rid of these pieces. Like I said, they had a sponge. They'd have a sponge in here, and I forgot to pick up a sponge off the beach. I see a nice little one down there the other day, and they would set that down onto the sponge, put it onto there, turn that right down around, and you can see there's a pretty good sized hole there to fill in with solder. It'd be soldered full. And then it's the same thing for the other end. Put that right down so it's right down against there on that slate and solder it. And that can's all soldered. This is one that I've put together right here. You see, she's quite a rough job. They do it a lot nicer than that, but still it looks similar to that. You see the end of it? It's all made right on that stake. There's my joint right there. Now the can's all ready to put the food in. That's where they fill the food in, right here. food's all in, they put this cap that I made on that same mandrel, same steak, put that on, solder it on, boil it a couple of hours, the contents a couple of hours, and water it 212, and that's all ready for the market. Now, Becky, I want you to look up at these big dies here. So the stuff you were just seen is 1839. They continued to use it for a while. And these dies here, these are the blanking dies, they come out in 1843 or 4. Right here where I've got the little white ring, there's a little piece sticks out, makes a little dimple in the cover. So they'd make a couple of ends up. Now here are the ends from the blanking dies. This made on a piece of scrap tin. You see the little dimple there in the end. Now here are a couple here from the big die. You can see the dimples right there. Now you see both of the dimples, the holes are down. You see that? And so the reason they have these dimples in there, so you make up the can evenly. See, these ovals aren't symmetrical. In other words, this side isn't exactly like this side over here. So if you turned it over, you'd have a crooked can. It wouldn't come out right. If you turned it end for end, it'd be the same story. So the only place they come out right is if both of those dimples are up or down, either one. And then you'd put that on the steak and bend these edges down. And the ends from the bottom on, edges from the bottom on, you bend up. Okay, now I've got a can here that I've made in that fashion. And I didn't have a steak, so I just used the pliers and bent them up around. Now, I'll show you the can a little bit. You see I've had to hammer a concave into it. You see this little band around here? They were using this one, like I said, in 1843 and 4. And there's an account where William Underwood received a letter from a fellow that had invented this little band to go around the can. And I got another can right here. It was from the small die. And he said that, so this fellow said that that's a nice way to open the can. There's a piece of dirt on there. Make the two cans and put this, sort of this little band around it. But Underwood wrote back to the fellow and said he'd already been doing this for some time. Now you see I've just got this stuck together. See that? See, this key is just an old homemade key that I found here. I don't know just where I dug it up, but it looks good on there. Now, here I've got an old ham can right from Underwood's down to Jonesport. You see there's no dimple in it on either end, which indicates that very probably was marked out with a scribe and cut out with the curved bell shears. Now this was full of brushes for direct current motors. They were on direct current down there. So there's the side seam. You can see that pretty good. And now on this, so they were made, those two oval cans, the ends would have been made right on this big press right here, this arch screw press. And I've got a die in there, and this would be a little bit newer die than those oval ones, probably about 1845. So I've made up a can from the die that's in there. See that? And now we're going to go right over here on this press and cut a couple of ends and show you how you shape them. Now, here's the big arch press. The only press that I know of that would be available at that time to take these blanking dies. I want you to notice the key in the top. You see the width of it here, and when I turn it, it's over twice as wide. I never see that type of key in any old machine in that fashion before. So you see the whole shape of the press right here, the arch. That's the reason they name it, you know, this shape here. And we're going to get in here to look at it close, but there's some little wedges in here and right across on the other side in the slides. And then you'll see a little bit of the punch down below. So we're going to look this one over close, and then we'll cut a couple of covers. Okay, here, I want you to notice these little wedges here. There's one out back here to mate it up, and they cross each other out in the middle. And there's a little tiny slide right down back of there, as you can see. Now when the press this size, that slide, instead of being about 1.25 inches from top to bottom out there, should be at least 1 foot. This is a little tiny one. This is opposite to the newer presses. Very old, very primitive. So you just tap those in by one another till you get that to the right tightness. And you, over on this side, you'll see the other wedge is out quite a ways, and this one is way in. And here's the slide down in here that I was telling you. See it again right here. Now, I'm going to cut a cover, an end. This little thing here is the stripper, that little finger. That finger's supposed to strip that off there, see, it's trying to. I'm really using aluminum here instead of the tin, because it's easier on the old die. Now there's the end. I'll put that up here and then make up another one. Pretty near got it off there. Now I'll go out and up here and we'll assemble one of these cans for you. Now here's the stake for this blanking die. And you notice this blanking die did a little bit more than the one for the ovals. It formed that concave in there so that you wouldn't have to hammer that in. That's quite a saving in time. Okay. Now, I'll go at this backwards, but you see down in the center there's a little place down in here. This is where you form the patch. So you just go right down in there and do your work. Simple as that, see? Hammer the middle down in whenever you want to. So there's the patch. There's a blank. You centralize that. And hammer that right down around there. Okay. Now here's one that's practically all hammered on there. Just got a little ways to go on this one. See that? There's one that's all done. You notice again that turn the cover and the end to the hammer in one place. And here's the can that I've made up right here. On this little bit rough, it's okay. that I made up on this outfit. See, there's the inseam, the body seam, and there's the patch I put on that. Now this takes us up through somewhere through 1845, and the next improvement is the combination dies, and we'll show you those, and they're going to be installed in the pendulum press. Now here's one die of the set for the combination dies. There's 3 dies in the set. Now this one makes the end, and there's the end there. And if you're going to make a can, then you'd make 2 of those ends, and then you put one of the ends through another die. You make the fill hole in there in this little groove. You put another piece of tin under press and make up the patch.
Now, what year was these combination dies made, Barney?
This is in 1847 or 1848. Now we're coming to the pendulum press. And this pendulum press, this type right here, was used first right out on Treats Island. It was invented by Henry Evans of New York. And I'll put a piece of tin in there. And this has got the die from that set that makes the patch.
Now, what year did this press come out, Barney?
You see, I think this was 1849. I'm going to give that a good kick. Now there's a foot lever. See, I can move it right here on the foot lever, see? I kick it a little harder than I have to, because sometimes it doesn't cut if I don't give it a really good boot.
Now, I'm going to come right in close, Barney, and cut another one.
Okay. So you centralize that on there nicely. I'll let that slide right out there. Now you see, you might not be able to see that good, but that's his R and R on there. That's Richardson Robbins. It's down in Dover, Delaware. That's a subsidiary of Underwood's. And it says right on the die, too, Dover Machine Works, Dover, Delaware. And now we've got to go over to the next die that makes the fill hole. Now here we are at the little Blundell screw press. If you go back in here, you can see the little red pinstripes. This is all original paint on it. Now just to recap what we've done. See, there's 3 sets of dies to one set of these combination dies. You have the set of dies sitting on the shelf that made the ends. And then, and this press we're on now is going to make this fill hole. And the one we just used there, just left, makes this little cap right here.
Barney, what year is this press here?
What's it say in the book?
Well, I want to know what it says right there on the front of the press.
You do. This reminds me of the time I went to Bangor shopping for a car. And I see one I like the looks of, and the boss comes running right out. And he says, "Ain't she a beauty?" And I says, "How much?" And he says, 500. And I says, "How many miles on it?" And he turns and he says, "Hey, Fred, how many miles on that LaSalle?" And that's Fred with just his feet hanging out the front door, and he says, "Anything you say, Dad. That's what I'm working on right now." Well, he turns to me and he twirled his cigar a couple of times, and he says, "Well, what do you say?" And I says, Make it 25,000 and 350. It was a good car. Now, I guess today isn't my day. I tried to tell this story a few minutes ago, and when I got to Fred, and I says, and that was Fred with just his front feet hanging out the door. And I says, I blew it again, Beck. He said, I didn't see anything the matter with it. So she's not very observant, I guess.
Well, I think I'll come right in now, Barney, and look at that nameplate there on the front of the press.
Okay. What's it say?
It says Blundell, patent June 22nd, 1869.
That's...
And I think right while I'm in close that I'll just go right down and you can cut another one.
Okay.
Close up.
Okay. So I set the cover right on there, even it right up nice, centralize it. The cover now. So you see how that sets right on there, right into that little valley. And what they really do here, when they make up the can, is I didn't explain that too good back there, but they dip this here down onto a sponge. It's in water. And then dip it into ground rosin. And that's what they use when they solder. And it'd be the same for the cap, too, the same idea, the patch. Now we'll move on. That white sweater was interfering with the movie camera. So I had to put this jacket on outside of it. Now the Blundell press and all the rest of the things coming along now are all from Underwood's. And when they're not, I'll tell you for sure. Now I want to cut out the body section on this square inch here. So you put that just foot on the line. I got that painted so I can see. You down on the foot paddle, Becky?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to give that a kick, sort of like guillotine effect. They cut that end off. Now I'm going to turn this one, and I got this marked over in here too, so that I can put that where I want it. Now I'm going to cut it off for this direction. I'm going to kick them. Okay. Now we got the body panel all ready to take over to the farming rolls. Now we're going to put the body blank to the farming rolls. That square inch here is Pexto and Wilcox. Call it Pexto. And these farming rolls are Pexto also. So it goes right around. You have to keep it from going right back through again, see? You have to keep it holding it up like that. Now the body is all ready to be soldered together on the side seam. So now we take the formed body and put it right in this clamp. There's two little pins here, one here and one on the other side. You can't see the other one. And this slate holds everything in place. Normally I'd have it rolled down a little further, but I want you to see the joint right here. And then you treat it the same as you do any of these other joints. This time, we're putting a little water and the rosin on there. And take the hot soldering iron, and see this slate is actually a guide for it. So you really put that right on the tin, right behind the joint, and go right straight across there, real slow. And it would melt the solder and draw it right down into the joint. In other words, the heat from the soldering iron is not out where the solder is. It's back where the tin is double. Okay, now we've got this soldered, and we'll move over and put the ends on. Now we put the bottom on, and you see the joints all soldered now. This is one I did up before. Now I've got to put the top on. Now the top is all on with the fill hole. And this little part here is full of molten solder. So you put the can on there, and that back is slanted so that the can goes right down into the molten solder just for a little ways. You start with this joint up, and you turn that just slowly. Have gloves on naturally. And take that right around until that joint is back up to the top. It's quite a ways around on those cans, you know. 15 inches or so. Okay. So then we got the can all together. It's all ready for the trade. Now I want to show you another can. This done in this same kind of machine. I'm going to set this to one side so that you can see this one good. This is one of the old original cans, and it's never been used either. Now you see the solder where it's rolled down into the solder and where it's gone up onto the end in the same fashion. And this can come right out of the lobster factory over on Graham and Ann. And I'm pretty sure that an Underwood owned it. That's George Underwood, and it must be William's son owned the factory. I'm pretty sure of it. Now here's our little Cameron can closing machine. And this is from Underwood's laboratory down in Jonesport. Now I want to show you how it operates. This is one of the real early ones. The serial number was something like 190 or something like that. So on the first operation you haul on this lever. And when you haul on the lever, the can will be in place there, and when you turn the handle on the other side, this roll will turn. You'll be able to see that good. When I push on the lever, there'll be another roll in here, and that's the second operation, and that'll turn to put the second seam on. So I'll be turning the hand crank over here. When I put the can on the base plate here, I'll haul up on this hand lever here, and that jams it right in place good and tight. And you see the different rings on here for about 5 or 6 different sizes. Those parts are right around here. There's one size here and one here. So you got 6 of them right there, different ones. So now I'm gonna...
Now what era is this, Barney?
It's just about 1900, and the other stuff stopped. It was right around the late 1860s, everything that I did on the other. Now this is, like I say, around 1900. So when I put that can in place, it sets right in a little groove in the bottom. And I have to haul this handle just a little bit so that the cover can go up by the, see how that's going up by there? See this, that last part locks it good and tight. Now it's awkward for me, but I've got to haul on this lever, but I've got to reach over top of here so you can see it. Normally you'd be standing right up straight in front of that. I can try to stay out of the light if I can. Now, you can look in a little closer at that back and you'll see that it's round, then come back out. That seam that I just made is round. Okay?
Yeah, she's...
Then come right back out and I'll put the second operation on it.
Okay.
Okay? Now I'm pushing on the handle. I think I'll have to hold it with my ribs. I wouldn't want to do them any this way. Okay. Now we push the handle down, take the can off, and the can is all double seamed. Now, here's a general view of the Crown Cork and Seal Company bottle capper that Underwood used for jarring the bottles of clam juice. Now here's the foot pedal to kick on right down here. Every time you put a bottle in, semi-automatic you call this. And we'll come right up to the drive. There's the big emblem there. Now here's the drive. It's a big flywheel, geared flywheel, the motor. And the hopper would be full of the caps. And right above the caps is the basket that they cook the clams in the square Portland retorts. And also they used this to sterilize the clam juice after it's all capped. So back down to here, this hopper would be full of the caps, the bottle caps. And they go down a brass chute. The brass chute is right out back here, hidden right here for a little ways. Right down around here. And right into the capping unit. So one little kick on the foot pedal, and that would put the cap on here. That's one of the old bottles. Now we'll show you a few more things in the shop.
Now this is a set of farming rolls from down to Underwood's. Barney's turned the handle on it so you can see how it works.
And here's the oldest bar folder that I've ever seen in my life. You see it's mostly wood with iron bolted to it. And that's for bending the sheet metal.
Now this is our collection of Underwood's quarter sardine cover and can collection. This one here is one of the punch and roll covers.
And you've got to notice the difference between the next one. They're pretty much alike. See the difference in the shape of the score line here? One is round and one is... See that?
You're putting it in focus when you're saying that.
You see the difference there?
Yep.
Now, this one here was a special one they put out during the war when they didn't have the material to make the keys for the covers. It said to use a nail. And it's the same thing again. Sort of a gloomy looking one.
This is a Penobscot Maine sardines. This is Sunny Island brand. This is in soybean oil.
And you see that says Coastline Canning Company, so probably that's not Underwood. I never noticed it that at all very then.
This is their style cover though.
Yeah.
This is a Royal River brand. And these are in mustard sauce.
Yeah, they leased that factory from that company. Stevens, I think it was, owned it.
This one is a cover from the Sardine Council.
It's the grading sample. See, it says right on the official grading sample. They'd take 10 of those out of a lot. They'd sort of sneak one in whenever they felt like it, the inspectors. And then we'd find them once the sardines were packed off into boxes. They actually put in 12 and they had to find 10. And that's how you'd get your grade.
This is the Red Box brand. This one's in the soybean oil.
Yeah, we've got the little certs to put into the die so that you can stamp that right in the red box. That was in the old models.
This is seagull sardines.
You got that? But the gull almost seems upside down, doesn't he?
Royal River. And soybean oil. Now this one here is a Spanish color.
You see, that's in olive oil. So we've really got three of them that just looks a lot alike. This is really soybean oil right here, Becky.
This one says tomato sauce.
Okay. Now I got to move up to this place here.
This is the Lubec brand.
That's a famous old brand there, and they did those down to Bass Harbor, McKinley used to call it years ago. And that they fried them there just the same as we fried ours, except theirs was on a little conveyor. Conveyors ran through the fry tank.
This is one of the cartons. Lubec sardines.
So they'd put a can right in that carton.
This is one of the old machine sorted bottom cans.
And had your key place right on here.
Yeah, you just wheel that whole bottom right off. Now this is the blanks in the tin. This is a Seagull brand.
See, there's room there to cut a couple of covers.
And this is the wrapping paper to wrap up a can of sardines.
And that, I'm pretty sure that we bought that machine from them and sold it.
Now these are the dies for the ham cans. This is our collection of dies. This is for the large one here. This one's a little smaller. A little smaller again. This is the smallest one we've got. Now this is one of the small cans from that die I just showed you. And this was made exactly like the cans that I made in the Wolf and Reesing shop.
Now we're going to show you a full set of 1/4 sardine can dies for the Underwood can. 1/4 would mean 1/4 of a pound. And these weren't made by Underwood. They were made by American Can to make the cans for Underwood. We always called them the Underwood 1/4 narrow can. So this is a kit right here. This is for 2 parts for the can die. You see the can over there to the right. And this is the blank that it would have made just as it was forming the can. The can has to be trimmed. You've seen that in other films we've had here. A little extra material around the edges, and this is the trimmer die for that can. And over here would be the regular standard cover. There's one there, the Sardine Council cover again. There's 2 parts to that die. And for the punch and roll type covers, cover would be plain on the top, and these are the 2 parts for it right here for the die. And there's the blank that it would make. And then you've got to have another set of dies, and here I'm right between 2 sets of dies here that makes those punch and roll covers down here. Right here is one of the keys that opens it, sitting right here. So you see the 4 different covers. And right here is the parts from the closing machine that seals it up. I bought the closing machines from Underwood. ship those out. A little later on, about the early 50s, American Can made this type of cover. So this is the blank, cutting out the cover and making up everything except the scoring. That's the two parts of it. Now we come over to here. This is the scoring die. These two pieces here, these two here makes up one unit. And it actually cuts that cover halfway in two. And that takes care of our 1/4 narrow sardine cover dies and cans here.
Now this is Underwood's double bell whistle that they used in the Jonesport factory. This was used to call the help. Right down there where Barney's pointing. What'd you call that, Barney?
That's the whistle valve. It's a separate part from the whistle.
Now over here, this is Underwood's Devil. This is a stencil that they put right on the end of the case, or the top of the case, whatever. Isn't he a handsome devil? Now over here, we've got Underwood's weather vane.
That was way up on top of an outfit that drew vacuum on the fish meal dryer. We bought the fish meal dryer for our operation. We did pearlescence. That was to process the scrap fish, and that was way, way up in the air on top of that. And Becca, make sure to come up now to those scales above, will you?
Okay. First I want to point out the U on the top of that. That stands for Underwood. Well, here are the scales.
And that's the weight hung off in here. This weight belongs right on here to balance it. We got it way up there. And Becca, right over the end of that, you should get that little heater.
Yeah, do you want to point that heater out, Barney, so they'll notice it?
It's a little heater, little kerosene heater, and you can take this little covering right off if you want to light it. That would be giving off a lot of heat.
Well, this is the amp meter. And right beside it's the voltmeter.
Those will be right on the switchboard down to the Underwood plant in Jonesport.
Look at these shears here.
Those didn't come from Underwood. I've got a bigger pair from Underwood, but I like this little pair for in here. And get this little grinder here.
All right.
And this didn't come from Underwood. It's a
Isn't
nice
that
looking piece.
Isn't that cute, huh?
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to go over and look at the whistle that was down in Bass Harbor.
Yeah.
It's a great big whistle here, tall.
Yeah, single bell. And the whistle valve on this one is made right onto it. There's no confusion. They used to call that McKinley back when we were going down that way. We got a lot of stuff out that place.
Now this is Underwood's branding iron. And they would heat this up red hot, and then they'd burn it right into the wood on the end of the boxes. And I'm going to take you up and look at one of those boxes now. You see where that's been burnt right in there? Do you want to point that out, Barney? Okay. Now this is an amp meter. This is 1888.
And they used this, the electrician would use this going from one job to another in the shop. It's right from Underwood's down to Jonesport, those pieces.
And the voltmeter right next to it. That's 1888 also. It's a set of old scales.
I'm not sure they came from down there. I can't remember. And I don't remember on these pieces either, Becky.
Okay.
A little oil can and a knoll. And this one right here, I'm almost positive it come out of Richardson Robbins. I'm almost positive of it, down in Dover, Delaware, one of Underwood's subsidiaries. And then isn't that beautiful though? Those handmade, you can see that.
Very pretty.
And I don't know where that little oil can there came from either, Beck.
And you can just see an old lamp in the edge there. I can't get over all the way to see that one. Now this is another set of Foreman rolls from Underwood. I'm quite close to this, so I'm going to just go right down over it so you can see how it's clamped onto the bench.
Got a little anvil on the back. Now we're recapping what we've learned here today. There's a jar of raspberry jam in the foreground, cranberry, 1820 to 1835 so. And right above it's one of the jars with the early jars with the Wyatt cork stopper. And then the can that I made on that early steak, 1839. And right under it is the early ham can, the same era. And that oval can, both oval cans made about 1843. And right out in front of it, that would be made on a blank and die about 1845, and the dome of it would be all concaved. And then there's the one that we made. It'd be around 1849, and that would stay that way until about 1860. And right in front of it is one of the same type. You see, with it's been through the solder part. And this one seemed to run the same era. It's a different style, that's all. But it would be from the 50s up through to 1900. And right beside this one that hasn't even been soldered together, but it's got both ends in it. It's all ready to be soldered. Same style. It's the same style as that little ham can. You see the heavy solder on it. Exactly the same style as what Becky made in the Wolf and Racing shop. And right along to that next one, that's the same style and probably a little newer because it's not soldered so heavily. And then you see the sardine can, and that's just exactly the same as Becky made in there. And right behind that is a set of dies, half the dies right there, the bottom half. The other half's right there, for making the impression for the key on the key cans. And that is a key can. It's hidden some. She's pointing out there now to you. And just beyond that is an early sanitary can, and one of the covers laying on top of it with the paper gasket. It's one of the early ones. And then dropping down towards me, there's a domed can, and that's the same die that we see just a little while ago over there. And that batch of dies. It's a real early drawn can, quite a big can. And right beside it, that one is one of the newer ones from the Underwood narrow can, and the older one's right next to it. And I showed you that in the dies a little while ago. That one's about, those are about 1903, the whole of them. That one's about 1903. Could be a little earlier, a little older. See, it's got the tab end on it. Yeah, see that? And there's a real early drawn sardine can, 1903 or 4. And right beside it, that's a 3-piece can. And that's patented November 3rd, 1903. And I want to get the other oval shaped on it there first, Beck. See, and that's an early double-seamed can. I've never seen anything just like it, but it must be because I don't get around enough, I guess. And then down here is an Underwood modern can, at least from the 50s. And that was up around in the 50s, maybe 60, that they made that very first flip top one in the Underwood can. And then we come right over to the one that we did here today that we sealed up on that little Cameron closing machine. And I think this is coming just about to the end of things for today.
Hope you've enjoyed your visit here, the old Sardine Village Museum here in Lubec, Maine. See ya!
Welcome to the old Sardine Village Museum. I'm Barney Rier. My wife Becky and I own and operate this establishment. And today we're at the can company. And I'm going to show you how to make a high quality, low cost sardine cover. I was explaining this procedure to a fellow here a while back. He's the foreman in a little can shop. And just as I wound up, I said, now you can see that this saves quite a bit of money on tin plate. Very little scrap. And he says, hold it right there, Mr. Man. We make money off of that scrap of ours. And I says, you do? There's a fellow down in Lubec that you ought to meet. He claims he's got this all worked out. He says he can pick up enough money off his empties to keep him in beer. And now, I'll show you the scrap. Now here's a view of the scrap. There's 8 out here. I'll come in so you can get a good look at it. Now you can see there's a very narrow web between the cutouts. And right now that's down to 20 thousandths, top and bottom, and at each side, but it isn't centralized just right. There's less on the left than there is on the right. And when that started out, after it was closed in to a smaller size, those webs would be 60 thousandths. So starting right from the center, this cutout is 20 thousandths greater than the newly closed in one in every direction. Now I'll show you the sardine cover, the specifications for it. This flange from here into here, these are adjustments we can make here. This flange is a 1/4 of an inch, 250 thousandths. It's okay to have it up to 4 thousandths greater. Another adjustment. From this plane here to this plane here, the countersink is 109 thousandths from here up to here. And that can be increased to 115 thousandths. So you got 4 thousandths and 6 thousandths right there. Now here's the bead over in here. On a newly closed in die, this bead is 23 thousandths from this plane down to this plane. And that can be increased to 28 thousandths. So it's approximately 5 thousandths up here on the bead and 5 thousandths down. So that's 10 thousandths. That's 20 thousandths then of adjustment, of take-up, to take up the extra material from the center of this cover to any place to the outside. There's a 20 thousandths adjustment. Now I'll show you the die. So this is a view of the die. Right here in the center is the die block center. This is the forming block. The tin is hauled right down over this block to form it. And around the edge, we call this the cutting edge. This is the size of the blank. Now right here in the center of the sides, of the long sides of the ends, is the low point. And as you move towards the corner, this is a high point. And then as we move here to the center of the end, it goes down to low again. So you see when the cover's being cut, starting right from this high point, it's just the same as starting here with a pair of shears, cutting down this way, starting from this high point and cutting this way. So you see from 4 corners to a pair of shears, 4 corners, you've got the same as 8 shears. Now, I'll show you the segments. As you can see, they're joined together here. You can hardly see it, but we're going to show you the segments. Now, here's a close-up of this tongue and groove joint. So there it is open. You can see it fits together, so you can't even see it. Now here we are at the old diamond surface grinder, and it's been established that the cover blank is too large. Now we've got to close it in, as they say. Now this here machine was a birthday present from my son Frank. Well, that's the kind of presents I get. And when you do your grinding, you got to have your safety goggles on. As my brother Babe says, he always gets time and a half when he wears these. Now you'll notice that this machine is run off the overhead belt, overhead shaft. Now I'm going to be turning it right off of this when I turn it. Now I want you to look the machine over so you can see the style of it. It's a real old timer. You see the name tag down in there, Beck?
I'm going to bring it right in so we can look at the name tag now.
Yeah, and after the name tag, I want you to look at these segments. And you'll notice on the segments before that it's a tongue and groove affair. And you can't grind with this outfit off of the tongue end, so we're grinding off the groove. And every one of these, you see right here, Beck?
Yes. Yep.
Every one of these you'd grind off the groove side. And 2 of them, the opposite, the diagonal ones, goes on this side. I think this is A over here. It's either A or B. And the opposite ones, they go on that same pin on the top and down on this pin on the bottom. Now, so I'm going to turn this, but normally, like I say, to turn the overhead shaft, and you turn that, you go back and forth and adjust it up. There's a hand wheel down under here you adjust it on, and you take the same amount, like I say, off of every section. And in this case, 20 thousandths is a good amount. So you grind that to 20 thousandths on all 4 of them, and then we'll fasten them into the die shoe and move on to the next operation. Okay, now I want to show you how the magnetic chuck works. So the power's all on here, and that's on. Once that's, you can see I can shake the whole building right there and hardly move that, see? Turn that off. And that slides right off there good. And it's got magnetism in it. And if you leave the magnetism in it, then it'll pick up all the scrap when you're making covers. So you take it over to the demagnetizer. That's humming noise you'll hear here now. So you put that on. Seems dead. So now we'll go over to the next machine. So we have the segments all bolted back into the die shoe and all centralized. And there's a little groove here that's supposed to be filled full of a lead alloy to hold everything in place. And on this one over here that I've refinished, you can see the lead alloy right along here. So Now this is used, this old grinder here is a Thompson grinder. It's used to grind the inside of the cuttage. And this table is slanted a great deal, you can see that, more than it has to be for this demonstration. But you can see that when it's slanted in that fashion, and I'm grinding, it's going to take more off the lower part, the lower portion of this cuttage, than it is off the top. And that's the reason I have it this way for demonstration. Now when we grind, this stone will always be downhill, exactly downhill. Can't change it any. Okay, this will be turned at real high speed, and as I grind, I'll have to go right along like that right there and spin it right around, but always, always keep this part straight downhill. Like that. So, after you grind a little while, you mark. You have to go inside here. I gotta stand up and do it. Try the template in there. And the template's marked front, and this is front over here. And as you grind that to shape, every place it touches inside, you'd mark it. You'd mark on the cut edge. And that's the only place you'd grind. So you go back to the grinding, and when this is finished, that template will be almost the top, down 1/8 of an inch, and if it's ground right, it'll be so accurate that I've done these so they'll actually hold water. Not a drop of water. If you put water on top, no water will leak down through. And now we'll move on to the next operation. Now you can see these machines look a lot alike. I call them the Thompson twins. Now the other one had the grinding stone driven from the bottom, and this one has got the stone driven from the top, as you can see right here. Now the only thing we'd be using this one for in this operation is once we try this draw ring in here, it comes up on a little flange on the bottom, up underneath this cutting edge. If it doesn't fit in there, if it binds, we have to use this machine here. And generally, the place that would bother first would be each one of these bolts right here. Just you close them in, these bolts will get out into the way here. So this stone would grind the sides of these bolts off for this operation. Now we'll move over to the next operation. Now we're at the big American can die cut edge grinder. I call this my big phonograph record player. You see, it looks like a big turntable here and this arm here. So what you do here is bolt this die cut edge with this shoe right down by these bolts right here, and the table is all marked off in circles. And it says front here, so this is the front of the die right here. You bolt that down. Normally I wouldn't have to touch this, but it seems to be sticking just a little bit now. So it follows that right around. It's all weighted heavy to follow that around. There's a little adjustment in here. So this stone would be turning this way towards the bottom, up towards the center. And the table would be turning this way. And so it's all motorized. I wouldn't be standing here turning this like this. So as that turns, this stone here turning this direction, and there's a big hand wheel right here in front of me to set the table up. And when this trues up the whole way around, it's all finished, so we can move on to the next job. Now I'm going to show you a couple of more things about it. So this got little tiny cams on it. In other words, little bumps and little bumps and flats all around it. And this says 8 points on this one. The one under here that's on the machine now is 4 points. So that we have the 4 corners higher. As I said before, I'll set that out of the way. As I said before, those four corners are the high points. Now here's one that I've ground. I'll put one right in place here that I've ground. It's all ready to go, completely ground, on this very machine. Now the four corners are high. Just as I said before, the ground, and it goes downhill here, and from this high point it goes down to here to the center. So you got the four high points, same as 8 shears. That's the way we always cut in sheet metal. Nothing's thumping right down through. There's shearing action to it. Now we'll move over to the next operation. We'll set that cutting edge to one side for a minute. Now we're going to work on this die block center. So the whole center of this die block center comes out. You can see this one here is right here. And so you shim under that to get the bead the right height. And then we got the other part here, and you can see that that's got a shim all in it, an old sardine cover. And you shim under that one until it's the right height. That fits right down in the center of that. And when it's right, it'll fit this profile gauge right here. You see at the center, that's supposed to hit even on here and here, out on the center here, and the same on that side. Now we got to centralize the cut edge. So that we got the cut edge back now, and this is the centralizing block I've got here in my hand. It's all marked front. You can see the F on it up here in my end. This is the front, and you put that right down on there, and then you drill right down through to find one place where there's enough room to drill. In here, or anywhere on here, you find a place you can drill, and on the opposite diagonal corner. Drill down through and put a dowel pin in there, and then take it back apart and ream out the hole on the top so you can be able to put this on and off quite easily. And then when you got your bolt holes are all lined up, so you take that right back apart. Take the centralizing block off. Now we got to fit the draw ring to this cut edge. This come out of there before. But whatever amount we took off the top of this right here when we sharpened it, this has to be cut off enough to bring it down to that same height. Now this one's already been done. I finished it. So it would be ground off a few thousandths on the surface grinder, and then it would be smoothed up on this lapping machine that we're working on right now, that I'm using for a table. Now, you can see, I'll have to put that together before you can see this next part. So that has to be just barely up above the cutting edge. I'll have to bolt it together to demonstrate it. We'll put the spider in. So here's the spider. There's the 4 holes right there for the spider. Now the spider is going to hold that draw ring up real tight. And you might be able to see, this is the front right here. This little notch out here indicates the front. So this end's the front. And when this piece of tin comes in here, it's supposed to, this end has been relieved enough so that hits on there and rides over the top of it. And when it comes along over to this side, it's relieved right along here too, so that it can't catch on there, and it rides over top of that again. And this is shimmed up to a regular feed line height, so they'll never have to guess where it is. Underneath of this spider, this rubber would be holding up real hard. There's a bolt that goes right through this. Bolt right through this, and you can tighten the rubber so that you can get whatever pressure you want on that drawing. Now we can go over to the punch portion. Now these punches are too large because they were to fit that cutting edge when the cutting edge was 20 thousandths too big all the way around. So the first thing you do is put this in the vise and file this off here. So it's right back so that the sides here are just the same as the top here, all even. You filed off all the 20 thousandths extra that was on there. And then you put this back into the surface grinder and grind it off until it's flat, till it, right out to the edge. You can see that it's getting good contact right to the edge because this has been rounded off, hammered down on the ends when they stretched it out to fit. Now, that increased the size of this, and this is the way they did it. They'd put lard oil onto this surface here and hammer it. And this is the staking hammer they used. Now this one here I've had it since '72. My brother used it before that from 1942. And before him, a fellow named Lester Myers here in town used it. Now my brother held it just like that. And all the staking he did. He was the head man, even the troubleshooter for American Cannon for all those years. Now the fellow before him put his thumb on there, and you can probably see that he wore that down through that handle quite a ways. Now when I hold it, I hold that finger on there like that. Now I haven't used it an awful lot. So you put the lard oil on, put it in this holder, and that's what you call staking. Now you'll be stretching that side out a little bit all the time like that. And that's the reason you'd have to file all that extra off. Then you've got to smooth it all up nice and work a fillet on it. Well, I have the fillet gauge right here that they use. Now the fillet would just be this. You can see the little radius right there. In other words, the fillet would be the radius. And this is 62.5 or 1/16 of an inch. And that gauge has to fit that all the way around, just like that. And then it has to be smoothed up. And I'm going to show you how you smooth it up. So you put the punch right on there, and this is on a machine. These would be turning, these two. You'd have one with a coarse grinding compound, one with a smoother one. And so it's going to be turning Bermuda. So that would turn, as that turned, I got to get some of my stuff out of the way here. And as that turned, you'd hold that down and let it go around once and then give it a turn like that, and go around again. Like that idea, see? Okay. So that'd be smoothed out, and you'd have to polish up down here on the fillet. And then you'd have to adjust it to the fillet gauge. Now this same gauge that we used for the other one, we used this part for the die block center, and this end here for this part. And that goes right down, and you can see it goes right in, makes contact on the face of the punch, and down in here, and over in here, and the same over there. Now we got to fit this punch to the press. So right in here you have a keyway. And in this is the back of it. And in the back of the press, up in the throat of the ram, there's a key that fits right in there. And when it's a good fit, it's almost like it's a magnet to it. It just sort of holds on to it a little tiny bit. And so now over in here, we've got to go over now, Becky, to the cutting edge, so I can show them how the whole thing's done. So we can put this in the press now right away. So the first thing we do then is put this one in the press. And right here on the stem you can lock it right in place. And then you put this one, the whole bottom portion, down on the bolster plate. And move it around, right? Bring this down to it, and when it gets almost to it, you move it around until it wants to fit in there. And when it fits in, you bring it right down tight against there. And you start a bolt in here, and over on the opposite side, you start a bolt in, bring it down just snug. Then you lift it back up and put the centralizing cover on. This is double the thickness of the other covers. You put that on, and then you bring it back down, bring the punch back down again, and when it's right down on real extra tight now, then you tighten these bolts. This one is opposite bolt, right up tight. Crank it up again, and put the cutting edge back on. Now you've gone down onto the dowels, on these dowels, so you can't miss it. So you got to go back on straight. Put the two bolts in. Now you've bolted it right down firm. Now one more time. You bring this down with a little cutting oil, lard oil around the edge. Bring that down on there and crank it back out. And if it's hitting anywhere, you take it out and file it off a little bit. Then you go back over to the staking. And with the lard oil on there, give this a little light staking all around. Then when you come down through, and that goes right down through, then there'll be a little wire edge that you cut off all the way around. You make sure you get that off. Take that off, make sure there isn't a drop of that left. We don't want that in the die. Then, when you come back up again, put your sheet of tin in and cut the cover. And that's what we're going to do next. Now, we're at the big die tryout press. The die is all installed, and I've just put a piece of tin in place. I'm going to cut an end here for you. See that? That little clicking noise is when it cut. It's real easy to cut on this one here. You can even draw a sardine can in this one. And that's another thing. All this procedure I've gone through for making a die up, it's pretty near the same procedure for making the can. And there's the cover right there. That's not shining in your eyes, is it, Becky?
No.
There's the cover. And this press is so strong that, like I say, you can cut a can on it. And at one of the factories, the regular can press they use, they put 4 men on a big bar to use all the power they could to cut a can. And the big bar slipped out of the flywheel one day and went right through the roof. That gives you an idea of the power. And I cut 100 of these one time for another museum. Now, Becky, I think that you should come in here. We'll give them a good close-up, cutting on these covers. Now we're going to cut another cover up close. I'm putting the blank in place. There isn't very much room for my head here. You see that? It cranks down almost by itself. There's the scrap. So I didn't have it exactly the right place. That's what you call a shortcut. I missed it just a little tiny bit right there. I had it going in by. I'll give that a slant like that right there and it won't be reflecting so much. Now we'll test these covers out. Now here's the testing device to check the flange of the cover. This is the test piece here, and you can see it says 252 thousandths. It's pushed right onto there, and you hold this button down, and that should be on 0 right here on the pointer. Okay, now we're starting from 0. Put the cover in place, and that should be, I can't see it from here, but that should be on 0, or approximately on 0 right there, on the flange. 252 thousandths. And okay, and that should be on the 0. Now you take the cover up to here, because you got to have the sides parallel. And you'll check here to see if it's parallel. On this side, it would really be right angles from this side to this end. And then when you turn the cover, and you get the same thing again, well, that shows that the sides are parallel and at right angles to the ends. Now we'll move over and check the countersink. Now we're going to test the countersink. That's the distance from the top of this flange down to the level of the cover. And you see, I think I got it on 0. I can't read that, but no. So I've got to take this right off into the air and hold it for a second and lower it down in there. So one time around is 50. And that's, see, I'll do it again. That was 50. I can see what it was, but I moved too quickly. That's 50. 50, and then whatever it is right to there. It's about 14. So there's 114 on that. So the countersink is good. Now we'll show you another testing device that has nothing to do with this particular cover, but it is a testing device. Now I'm going to show you how you check the score. And this is a Norwegian type cover. The cover's cut half in two. Now I've made this cover. In fact, I made a mistake when I made it, and it resulted in a little invention. So right now, it's reading on 0. And I've got to pick this up out of there and lower it back down onto the tin plate. Okay. Now you can see that it's 3 thousandths. So the score is 3 thousandths deep. Now over on this end of the can you see over onto here now?
Yes.
Now you see the score coming right along to here and stopping. Coming along here and stopping. When I made up the machine for this die, I made a mistake, and the finger that fed the covers in under the scoring die went right in, and the die, the punch come right down on top of it and broke a piece right out of the scoring part of it. And this is really probably a pretty good invention. When this cover is wheeled off now, wheeled back as far as here, the cover is still attached to the can, and it isn't a mess laying anywhere. They're together. Now we have one more device that I want to show you. This device here was patented by American Can in 1908, and it's to test the can to see if it will hold pressure. So it's got you hook it up to a bicycle pump. Now I'm going to try to demonstrate this now. So you lay that point on the can and turn it a little ways, and then hold this handle up. Put this handle up. Pump air in here, the bicycle pump, while you're holding this underwater. And if it blows any bubbles, it's a leaker. And back in the old days, back when my father was the seal machine man here at the big place in Lubec, they didn't even have any semen compound. They counted on the oil that it was packed in or the mustard sauce. Now we'll move on. Now I've shown you how to recondition the cover die. It'll take me just a couple of minutes to point out how you do the same for a can die. I reconditioned this one here. And sitting right in the top of the die block center is the profile gauge. Normally it'd be right down at along the center line. And you can see right in the very center, on the cutting edge, you can see where the tongue and groove joint is, right there. Now this is the punch over here. And in the punch is the gauge you use to determine the depth of the can. And right here in front is the profile gauge for the knockout inside of that punch. Now, right here in front is the template for the cutting edge. And right there you can see the two little template sections for the cutting edge. See the tongue and groove joint right there in the center. So when the can is drawn, hauled right down over that forming block, that's the can right there. It was made on that particular die. Now it's got some extra material around the top. Okay, now this is the trimming die. That's the cutting edge, the fixed part. And here's the punch. Goes down through just like a cookie cutter. So one more glance at that untrimmed can. The flange is too big. Right there in the center is the trimming, the excess. You needed that much extra to hold on to the can. Here's the trimmed, finished can. And right here is a cover. Whenever I do a job making up these dies, I like to have something to remember it by, so that one is my special one, cut in brass. This can right here represents the biggest job that I've ever done. I started right from making up the dies for the cover in the can, overhauling all the machines for it, even the closing machines. And you can see you see on the upper left-hand corner, you see the code number on that. Can you point that out, Becky? See a little, right there. And it's right in the bead. And that's all the room I had when I made that up. I had to have an embossing coder on there, and that's the only place I could sneak it in. Now, we'll move on. Now we'll pick up the items on the shelf on the back of the shop. Those are little spools of insulated wire. Just the same as the big ones they use in light companies. Up back above them, a bunch of gasket cutters, 2 sets. There's layout ink and that's fuse wire there, and those other little rolls. Grinding compound. Grease can, right beside it is the outfit you scoop out the grease to put in the grease gun. A bunch of templates on the wall. Have to have a lot of them. Grease, surface gauge, Barron scrapers. You can see that's Hansen Van Winkle Munning. And I think this Munning is a polishing rouge, I'm not positive. Sign bar. And now we're coming to the Rockwell hardness tester. And the principle that hardness tester works on is the harder the metal, the less distance the diamond penetrates it. Right beside that is a little hardening oven. And all those little pieces laying around underneath there are the test pieces for the hardness testers. And here's another hardness tester, a scleroscope. And the principle this one works on is that the harder the material, the further the little ball bounces. And I want you to see how pretty the designs are on that. It's beautiful. Here's a bunch of templates and little pieces that we use when we're making up the cans. Inserts to show that the cans are made in this country. That's the one for the punches. That's one for the can cutties. And those segments there just same as I used a while ago making up my dies. These are all the different templates you have to do your job. That's a little box that was full of these thermometers. I don't know what they're for, but they got carbon on them, so it might have been to use around diesel engines. I don't know. Different little machine shop parts and pieces. Here's a steam engine analyzer. It's to use to set the valves on steam engines. And there's another one right there, and we just passed a brass lubricator. This is more machine tool parts. These bars are all ground to a thickness, and that's a surface gauge out back. And I may miss the names of some of these. I just use them and don't know what you call some of them. Bumping onto the top of the old air compressor. Now right there is the kit to grind, reseat valves, faucets, even the ones in the house. And this is the big kit here for the commercial stuff on the valves. Right there is a die liner, a real old die liner, and I'm going to fix it up for in here. And right on it is a couple of chuck plates for the half-pound oval on the right and the pound oval on the left. I'm going to give you an idea what parts it takes to cut one can and close it up. Now there's the cuttage for the kipper can. You can see the punch down by the edge of the air compressor, right by the air compressor. And there's the trimmer for the can. The parts of it. And there's the part for the cover. one part missing there. And right out in front, there's a big lubricator. So that's the cover die. And this is the scoring die for the same one. It's the bottom part that doesn't move, and this is the punch part that moves. And there's the chuck that goes in the closing machine. And on the far right is where the can sits when it's being sealed up. Right there is a non-fluid oil can, and the brass grease gun that goes right with it, sitting in it. And sitting on this box is all the templates and jigs that you use to make this one can and cover unit up. To hold the sections when you're grinding them, every part of it. There's that lubricator again. It's a real close-up of the air compressor. This was used right here for the fire station here in town. I'm so close to it that you can't really see the whole of it in good shape. Now we'll move along. Now we're at the giant machinist tool chest. And you can see that it's sitting on its own little table, sort of like a library table. Underneath of it were all the machinist's handbooks. Must be 25 or so, even some out back. Right up front here, Modern Machine Shop Practice, 2 volumes. That's my favorite. Now right in the middle of the picture is a shaft level. It's got a little groove along the bottom of it. And there's the king size in-size calipers. Right there, the outside calipers. And those outfits with a little screw on the end of them, the corkscrews. They're to fish out packing from stuffing boxes. And there's a lathe grinder. It's an old-fashioned one. It's got little pulleys on it, and all the different pulleys and belts and everything are right there. As we move along, see the different machinist tools. There's 2 or 3 old micrometers there. There's the whole kit there for a vernier caliper with all the pieces in it. Dial indicators. Another lathe grinder. Right behind the clock, the arbors to hold pieces when you're grinding or even turning on lathes. And at the landing, we'll go back along the edge of the shelf. See clamps and different calipers. Planer gauge. here's the big lathe. There's a few things right over the far side of it. It's an old timer. There's no brand name on it. You can tell by the gears, the curved spokes in them, and in the pulleys. And, quite a few things on there indicate it's real old. It's got an odd adjustment out back to adjust the tool up. There's the center rest right in the center of the frame now. The tailstock. You can see even that looks a little odd. So down the chip pan, under the lathe, is the faceplate. It goes on place the chuck. And the dogs, and out back you can see the change gears. There's some numbers. We might get a chance to look at those a little better. And that is to hold milling cutters while you're grinding them. We have everything here for that. Boring tool, another 3-jaw chuck. And that must be the change gears for this machine. Now this is our Brown and Sharp horizontal miller. And the date's on it's 1890, I think it is. And we have the charts that goes with that for cutting gears and spirals and so forth. Do read that, Beck. I can't quite see it.
Universal milling machines made by Brown and Sharp Manufacturing Company, Providence, Rhode Island. A table of approximate angles for cutting spirals.
And it's got a chart on the other side too. And here's our little arbor press, granite I guess you call it. And that's 1899. Move that handle once, will you, Beck? So they can see what pushes the ram down. It's pressing out bushings and so forth. Here's a really old-fashioned die for the scored cover. Back when they had a solder piece on it for the tab to wheel the cover off. Here's the stationary half. Here's the cutting edge for a 3/4 mustard. That's 3/4 of a pound mustard cover. And here's an old-time scoring die for 3/4 mustard, around 1905. And this is the movable portion. Now here's our little bench, hard inch lathe. It's the whole length of it. See, set up for a collar attachment right now. We've got lots of little tools laying out in front of it. There's the planer gauge and its tooling. My micrometerance box. I guess that tweezers. A little square. There's Some little tiny tools. And there's the book for this very model. On the shelf over the lathe, little screwdrivers, little tiny tools, little files. You can see the little tiny tools laying there on the micron to tell different squares, calipers and so forth. Chocks. Decimal equivalent chart. Now this is right over in the corner of the machine shop, right back of the hard-inch lathe. And that box on the left case is to hold the scleroscope. And on top of it are quite a few cans, oil cans mostly. And there's old Val Giroux's tool chest. We got his drill press here, and tool that we'll be finishing up on today. Now and then there we got some die parts sitting on the surface plates, a couple of surface plates there. Two other small pieces. Now here's Becky got the little shaper. It is a floor model shaper though. When you hear that clicking, that's setting over to take another cut. And I'm going to show you the tooling for it. And there's the little cutters in the little wooden box. And the shaper tool holder. And right down in here, got quite a few really old-fashioned shaper tools. Those are, a lot of those are handmade, you can see that. And here's the drilling templates for the different sardine cover and can parts. Now they have to drill out all those holes on the drill press, and then with the cold chisel cut down through between the holes. And some of the pieces of steel they use would be 2 inches thick.
Here I am at the drill press. We got this from old Val Giroux. He used to be one of the old machinists here in Lubec. In the beginning, it was hand operated. But you see, he put a pulley on here so that he could run it on the overhead shafting. Well, I guess the time is running out. I hope you've enjoyed your visit here at the Old Sardine Village Museum here in Lubec, Maine. See ya!